SUV with James Corden here in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcus. So it's still a huge amount of coverage of the Israeli raid on that flotilla in the international press. We'll have a look at the New York Times, which is discussing the battle of the videos online, because the Israeli army shot several videos from helicopters, which they've released online. And also several media who were on board the boat, such as Press TV, Al Jazeera and others, have released their own footage. And the thing is, what the New York Times is saying is there's just no conclusive evidence really in these videos. It's very hard to tell who struck first, who fired first. Whether they're, it's led to more confusion really than anything else. And it shows that there's a real communications battle now on both sides. And what's certain is that this was a media event from the very start, some observers are saying, and that of course was the whole objective. So it's showing the way in which this has become a big communications battle online, with some of the videos getting hundreds of thousands of hits in just one day. Now, the LA Times is looking at the diplomatic fallout of things and how tough it is to be Israel's best friend. That, of course, is the United States. And it's only the latest example of how the relationship with Israel has complicated Obama's larger foreign policy agenda. James Dobbins, who is a special envoy for the Bush and Clinton administrations, has said the costs of the alignment are becoming even more apparent and the benefits harder to identify. And that actually echoes something that General Petraeus said some months back about how the perceived closeness with the Jewish state, or the bias towards the Jewish state, was a negative factor in the Muslim world. And the article also says that US support for the diplomatically isolated Israel has been compared to China's support for its ally North Korea. So certainly the US feeling the pressure of its close friendship with Israel.
Well, it's a very complicated situation that we're now moving into after the Israeli raid on this aid convoy.
Absolutely, and I suppose other diplomatic issues such as Iran could be very much complicated by the mounting tension on this. The Jerusalem Post on its front page has several issues, but the one that we'll look at is the Israeli army saying that the intelligence was insufficient on what was awaiting the soldiers on board the boat. So there's very much a focus more on I suppose a lack of preparation than on the methods employed in the Jerusalem Post. Apparently, one naval officer said that they were expecting light resistance to be spat on or slapped, but not knives, bats, metal pipes, etc. Now, if we have a look at Haaretz, a kind of more left-leaning daily, this is some of the coverage that we're coming across in the international press a lot, but here it's in the Israeli press. A guy called Aluf Ben, columnist, he's saying it's time now for real disengagements in Gaza, to leave Hamastan, as he calls it, to its own devices. Mm-hmm. Basically, all of the goals, have not been achieved. The policy has been unsatisfactory.
Is he talking here about the Israeli blockade that he says should be lifted then?
Exactly. He's saying basically the whole idea was that it would perhaps force Gaza to be reunited with the West Bank, and that has been a failure. All of the policy really has been a failure. Instead of arguing with the international community, Israel should tell it, you want Gaza? Fine. Take it. So that's his conclusion. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of focus too, just very quickly, in Haaretz and in the Irish Times on the Irish-owned vessel, the MV Rachel Corrie. It was the only one of the flotilla actually that wasn't towed in by the Israeli Navy, and it's currently in the Mediterranean, still hoping to deliver its cargo of aid.
Well, I think it suffered some engine problems a few days back. I may be wrong, but for some reason or another, it wasn't part of these 6 other ships that were trying to go towards Gaza.
Right, but it was hoping, I suppose, that the same goal was there to, I suppose, deliver aid. In any case, the Irish government has asked Israel to allow that aid to be delivered, and so it has led to some tensions between Ireland and Israel. And that's the Rachel Corrie was the boat was named after a young American activist who was killed in the Gaza Strip when she was trying to prevent Palestinian homes from being bulldozed. Anyway, now just finally on that, today's Zaman, which is a Turkish paper, one of their columnists is calling Israel a rogue state. This is pretty, I suppose, reflective of a lot of the coverage in Turkey, which is very, very critical of Israel indeed. Now,
we don't have a lot of time left.
So we'll move to something totally different. In the Wall Street Journal, the Polish president was warned is their headline. Now, apparently, they've the transcript from the pilot who was on board, the pilots who were on board that doomed flight, which Lech Kaczynski perished on. And apparently 15 minutes before the crash, the head of protocol went into the cockpit and she was told that it would be impossible to land. She said, well, that means we have a problem. And 4 minutes later, she came back into the cockpit and apparently there was no decision from the president on what to do next. And so it's unclear as to what happened, but it is clear that the pilots had in some way communicated to the president that the conditions were not suitable for landing. And in fact, in Libération, a French paper, their headline is Kurwa, which in Polish, I suppose, loosely means dam or some sort of an expletive. It was the last word of the pilot, basically.
Exactly,
recorded.
because we heard on this flight recorder, this recording that basically, when the pilots hit the trees, when they were coming into land in Smolensk, they started swearing, basically.
Yeah, they started swearing, and they were obviously very upset. They knew what was coming. So there you go.
Absolutely.
Sad note, I suppose, to finish on, but that's the latest on that.
All right, thanks very much, James, for talking us through the newspapers this morning. You're watching France 24. It's time now for an update of our top stories.